The first hint of trouble came not as a thunderclap, but as a ghost. On a humid Hawaiian morning, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper rippled through the radio waves, a phantom signal on a screen that was supposed to be empty. For the men of the Imperial Japanese Navy's First Air Fleet, sailing under the cloak of radio silence and a vast, unforgiving ocean, this was an impossibility. Their approach was a masterpiece of stealth, a dagger aimed at the heart of the American Pacific Fleet, honed by months of relentless training and fanatical devotion. Every variable had been accounted for, every contingency planned. The weather, the tides, the patrol schedules of the enemy, all had been woven into a complex tapestry of surprise. Yet, there it was. A ghost. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of this audacious plan, had staked his nation's destiny on this single decisive blow. He understood the industrial might of the United States better than most in the Japanese High Command, having served as a naval attaché in Washington. He knew that a prolonged war was unwinnable. The only path to victory was a swift, crippling strike that would shatter American morale and force them to the negotiating table before their industrial behemoth could awaken. The attack on Pearl Harbor was not merely a military objective. It was a psychological gambit of the highest order. The plan, known as Operation Z, was breathtaking in its scope and precision. 6 aircraft carriers, the most powerful naval strike force ever assembled, had crossed thousands of miles of open ocean undetected. The secrecy was absolute. The fleet maintained strict radio silence from the moment it departed Hitokapu Bay in the Kuril Islands. To deceive American intelligence, radio traffic from other ships was deliberately increased in the waters near Japan, creating the illusion that the carriers were still in their home ports. The Northern Pacific route was chosen for its notoriously foul weather and sparse shipping lanes, a desolate, storm-tossed corridor that no one would expect a massive fleet to traverse. The men were told they were on a training exercise, the true nature of their mission revealed only when they were far at sea, beyond any point of return. The tension aboard the ships was a palpable entity, a coiled spring of anticipation and dread. Every sailor, every pilot, knew that the fate of the Empire rested on their shoulders. They were the tip of the spear, the divine wind that would sweep away the Western obstacle. The first wave of 183 aircraft torpedo bombers, dive bombers, and fighters launched into the pre-dawn darkness on December 7, 1941. The roar of their engines was a symphony of destruction, a sound that would soon be seared into the annals of history. As they flew south towards Oahu, the pilots were confident, almost arrogant. They were the best of the best, their zeros and kates and vowels superior to anything the Americans could field. Their intelligence was meticulous, detailing the exact location of every battleship moored along Ford Island's Battleship Row. The element of surprise, they believed, was total. But 200 miles north of them, on the remote Opana Point on Oahu's northern tip, a new and untested piece of American technology was about to make its debut. The SCR-270 radar, a primitive collection of antennas and oscilloscopes, was manned by 2 young privates, Joseph Lockard and George Elliott. Their shift was supposed to have ended, but they kept the set running for a little extra practice. Suddenly, the screen bloomed with a massive, unprecedented blip. It was larger than anything they had ever seen, a solid mass of energy moving steadily from the north. They checked their equipment, certain it was a malfunction, but the blip persisted, crawling down the screen, an electronic harbinger of doom. They called the information center at Fort Shafter. Their report met with casual dismissal. An inexperienced junior officer, Lieutenant Kermit Tyler, on his first day on the job, assumed it was a flight of B-17 bombers expected from the mainland. "Don't worry about it," he said, sealing the fate of thousands. The ghost on the screen had been seen, but not understood. The warning, the first and only electronic premonition of the attack, was fatally ignored. Back in Tokyo and aboard the flagship Asterisk, Akagi Asterisk, The Japanese high command waited in breathless silence. Communication was a one-way street. They could listen to the reports from their pilots, but they could not transmit without revealing the fleet's position. Commander Minoru Genda, the brilliant naval strategist who had planned the intricate details of the air assault, paced the bridge, his mind racing through every possible outcome. Beside him, Admiral Kiichi Nagamo, the cautious commander of the First Air Fleet, remained stoic, the immense weight of the operation visible on his face. They listened to the crackle of the radio as the lead pilot, Commander Mitsuo Fukita, surveyed the target. Pearl Harbor lay sleeping under the morning sun, just as their intelligence had predicted. Fukita keyed his radio, sending the prearranged code words that would signal the commencement of the attack and its status. Tora, Tora, Tara, Tiger, Tiger, Tiger. The message electrified the Japanese fleet. Complete surprise had been achieved. The initial reports filtering back to Tokyo were euphoric. The Naval General Staff, gathered in their headquarters, erupted in cheers. The impossible had been done. Battleships were exploding, sinking at their moorings. Airfields were ablaze. American planes destroyed on the ground before they could even take off. It was a perfect victory, a textbook execution of a daring plan. The American Pacific Fleet, the primary obstacle to Japan's expansion into the resource-rich territories of Southeast Asia, appeared to be annihilated. For a few glorious hours, it seemed that Yamamoto's gamble had paid off spectacularly. The day of infamy for the Americans was a day of unparalleled triumph for the Japanese Empire. The celebrations, however, would be short-lived. As more detailed after-action reports began to arrive, a few unsettling details emerged, small dissonant notes in the symphony of victory. The primary targets of the raid, the American aircraft carriers, had not been in port. The *Lexington* and *Enterprise* were at sea, delivering aircraft to Wake and Midway Islands. This was a significant failure, a stroke of bad luck that tempered the elation. More ominously, intelligence reports started to mention strange American transmissions, intercepted chatter about a massive flight detected by a mysterious experimental device on Oahu's northern shore before the attack began. At first, these reports were dismissed as battlefield rumors or American disinformation. The concept of radar was not entirely alien to the Japanese. They had their own rudimentary systems in development, but they severely underestimated the progress the Americans and the British had made. The High Command in Tokyo was initially baffled. How could a secret fleet, traversing thousands of miles of empty ocean under complete radio silence, be detected? Their doctrine was built on the supremacy of surprise and the warrior spirit of the individual pilot, not on invisible electronic waves. They consulted their own technical experts, who assured them that reliable, long-range air detection radar was still a thing of science fiction. They concluded that the American device must have been a fluke, an unreliable gadget that produced a lucky but ultimately useless result. After all, the warning had been ignored. The attack had been a surprise. The evidence of their success was the smoking wreckage in Pearl Harbor. The ghost on the screen was just that, a ghost. They convinced themselves that their operational security had not been breached in any meaningful way. This dismissal was a catastrophic miscalculation, a failure of imagination that would have far-reaching consequences. They saw the what, the successful attack, but failed to grasp the significance of the how, the fact that they were seen, even if not understood. They viewed the radar not as a revolutionary new weapon that would change the very nature of naval warfare, but as a minor technical curiosity. Their focus remained on battleships and carrier planes, on the tangible instruments of war they understood. This doctrinal rigidity, a deep-seated belief in their own martial and spiritual superiority, blinded them to the technological shift that was occurring. They had won the battle, but the radar's silent whisper was the first indication that they were already beginning to lose the war. The true significance of the Opana Point radar would not become clear to the Japanese until the battles of the Coral Sea and Midway, 6 months later. In those pivotal engagements, the invisible eyes of radar would strip away their most cherished tactical advantage: surprise. Fleets would locate and attack each other from hundreds of miles away, their ships never once sighting one another. It was a new kind of warfare, one fought with electrons and radio waves as much as with shells and torpedoes. At Midway, American intelligence, aided by code-breaking and confirmed by radar-equipped patrol planes, knew Nagumo's fleet was coming. They laid a perfect trap, and in the space of 5 minutes, dive bombers from the USS Enterprise and Yorktown turned the tide of the Pacific War, sinking 3 Japanese carriers. The fourth, the Hiryu would follow later that day. The architects of Pearl Harbor, Genda and Nagumo, could only watch in horror as their invincible fleet was consumed by fire. The ghost from Opana Point had returned, and this time it was a specter of vengeance. Only then, in the crucible of defeat, did the Japanese High Command begin to comprehend the magnitude of their earlier oversight. The faint, dismissed signal from December 7th had not been an anomaly. It was the future, a future they had tragically failed to see.